All right, and we are live. This is with a dear, dear friend, an incredible leader, Mr. Steve Benvenuto, Stevie B, as you're well known. Thank you for coming. Great to have you.
Verena, thanks for having me. It's great to chat with you again, and appreciate the nice comments.
You've been fun to work with for a long time, back in your Cisco days, and a lot of times we get to do really creative things around go-to-market strategy,
Yep.
both with acquisitions, which I want to dive in because you have been part of over 20 different acquisitions and very strategic ones across, your background, but also taking solutions and nascent products to market.
Yep.
And you've got some really creative, unique ways that really hit the mark. And I've seen that over all the years that we've been working together. So I'm so glad to pick your brain, dive into this together. But
Awesome.
Before we get into all of that, for those who maybe don't know you, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. So Steve Benvenuto, I'm currently Vice President of North America Channel Sales for Cradlepoint. I've been at Cradlepoint almost 3 years now. Cradlepoint's in the 5G cellular networking space. It's a very hot market right now, 5G. Previous to that, 21 years at Cisco and 18 years in the channel at Cisco. And had an amazing career there. At Cisco, you could have multiple careers. I think I had about 4 different careers there, but 2 of them really stand out that I think are relevant to the conversation we're going to have today. At one point, we had a group at Cisco, which was emerging technologies, and so we were getting into new markets, bringing new technologies to market. This was when we were getting into things like connected stadium and getting into digital signage and getting into ruggedized routing for smart grid and these kinds of areas that were very new and nascent for Cisco. And so some of that was through acquisitions that we then incubated and brought out. And then some of that was new product that we were developing as well and trying to bring out, into the larger Cisco sales force. Then the other thing that I did towards the end of my career at Cisco was I ran our global cybersecurity partner channel, had a big team globally. But with that, we were going through a major transition of the Cisco cybersecurity portfolio, and we acquired a number of companies, I think 6 or 7 companies, OpenDNS, Duo, and others that are very familiar names, and then some smaller ones too. So, had experience on sort of new product introduction, bringing those out, and doing the same here at Cradlepoint now with some new products that we're bringing to market, as well as some recent acquisitions. So that's the background, and again, all of that in the channel, leading various channel organizations throughout the careers on both sides there.
And to your point, you have such a vast background in building all of these pieces that really help you drive a truly impactful go-to-market. So let's start maybe with the channel. So more than most people that I get a chance to work with and in the industry. How do you really build a channel and the importance of building a channel? It's interesting because we work with emerging tech all the way to Fortune 5 companies and everywhere in between. And there comes a point when they realize we've got to take the channel seriously. And it's kind of across that whole spectrum. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on how do you do that? You've got some unconventional ways, but smart ways to do it. I admire about how you approach the channel. So maybe tell us a little bit about that. What's your approach? What's your thought process there?
Yeah, and I think, it all starts with, no matter if it's, you're bringing out a net new product, or you're trying to scale, a current portfolio, or you're trying to bring an acquisition in, it always starts out with ensuring that you've got a compelling value proposition for the partners, right? I mean, our partners have lots of choices. I mean, they are looking at lots of different technology vendors. They've only got a certain number of, chips, if you will, if you think about it like a craps table, right? They can bet on certain technology bets, right? And so in order for them to place a bet on your company and your technology, you got to have a compelling value proposition. So that starts with the product itself, the market, understanding and explaining, the opportunity for revenue growth, the services wraparound that's created, the recurring revenue streams, all of that comes together into a value proposition you need to take to the partners and have them place that bet with you. So that's number one. I think the second thing is, you don't want that value proposition. It doesn't apply to all partners. You've got to be really specific around, the capabilities that you need with partners, the capacity that you need, right? Early in the market, I've made the mistake of oversubscribing the channel, having too many partners that are, sort of, all kind of trying to compete for a fairly small revenue stream in the beginning. And that can create issues, right? Because then, they don't see the revenue coming. They're not winning deals. And so it's a timing, it's a capability and a capacity that you have to manage. And even when you're at scale, you continue to look at that to ensure that you've got the right partners, in the right geos, in the right verticals, in the right segments. So it's a constant, evaluation, whether it's early stage or whether it's acquisition or whether it's at scale, of evaluating how you balance that. And the thing that happens is, the sales organizations always want, more channel, right? They want more leads from their channel. It's fine. I get it. Done it a long time. I know that. But having the right partners bring you the right leads is more important than just having a lot of leads, right? And so, whether it's early stage products or whether it's an acquisition, I've seen multiple acquisitions where the acquired company, I call it like the Billy Idol syndrome, that song, more, right? Like they want more salespeople selling their product. They want more partners and they want more leads. And the challenge with that is they typically get salespeople that aren't necessarily fully familiar with the solution. They get more unqualified leads and you get more unqualified partners. And so part of the trick is to be able to find a way to say no or not yet.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of what you do, is to have to weave that strategy in by working closely with your sales teams and partners to say, it's going to come to you at some point, but right now we need to contain it, manage it, and bring it to market in that way. So, those are, whether that's new product introduction, whether that is acquisitions that we're trying to scale, those are two things, or a few things that I've learned along the way.
And it's so funny how you're just so good. It's so true. We've got a couple engagements right now where we were hired by massive organizations with big
Yep.
names, leading the industry in some of the hottest buzzword topics, technology you can imagine. And they think, well, it's so-and-so, insert name here. Of course they're going to want to sell our stuff. And to your point, if you don't start with a value proposition that makes sense for the partner, it's not going to go anywhere. Just sticking your logo on it is not going to get you as far as you really need to infiltrate a market, a vertical, a segment, whatever it might be, or frankly, just enable a partner to be able to take, your solution to market. So how do you do that? How do you build? And obviously, this is a bit of a leading question because I know you can do it. I've seen you do it forever now. But
well, we work with you. We work with you to help us sometimes.
That too. That was not intentional.
We've done that for a long time, which has been very successful for sure. But I think I'll go back. I mean, it's, it really does start with when I think about it. And by the way, this goes way back to, as I mentioned, with some of the lessons learned on the emerging technology days. We worked very closely with the Chasm Group and Jeffrey Moore and his team, and got to know Jeff. And we really followed the principle around, like figuring out where your solution fits, validating the value proposition for the customer and the partner. We use terms like you got to have learning partners before you get a bunch of earning partners. And so, and these were hard lessons learned, especially when you're trying to do it under the umbrella of Cisco, where everything was trying to, scale everywhere. So, but again, the lessons still apply today, whether it's sort of early stage or even when you get into later stage. You got to manage the expectations with the partners. You have to validate that the solutions are actually solving customer problems and delivering outcomes. And you have to validate that the value proposition that you promised to the partner actually comes true, right? Because you can say, like, our solution does this, customers love it, it's got all these services. Well, if that doesn't really pan out, the partners are going to go pick something else to do, right? So you got to constantly be bringing that back, and validating it over and over again on the customer side and the partner side. And that's just ongoing, right? And then you got to make tough choices around, like I said, where you go into certain markets, where you go into certain verticals. We did lots of interesting things about compensating sellers and partners more for certain customers or certain logos. I mean, it's very interesting stuff, and it still applies today. With the solutions that we're bringing to market at Cradlepoint, we've got some newer solutions that we're bringing. We're really trying to execute some of those same strategies in the channel.
And you bring up a great point. I think, how you enable them. Do you really want them to be doing proof of values, or is that going to stall the cycle, the sales cycle?
Yeah.
Or is it more of, hey, let's give you this type of collateral, this type of a message, and then really doing your homework at a time. But I think most importantly is how honest you are with your partners. Hey, not yet.
100%, yeah.
This is coming. This is where we see you falling within our plan, and working with your partners to make sure that you're in lockstep there is one of the most important things you can do, including when you have a solution or you're going to market, saying, here's our bugs. Here's how you can get ahead of this is what it can do. This is what the solution does. Here's where we're still building this out. Here's what the roadmap looks like. Here's your talk track around it, versus letting the partner fall on their face in front of, God forbid, one of their, clients.
And full transparency is that we learned that lesson the hard way in some of the early stage stuff that we did years ago. And, it's very uncomfortable to have to, where we're taking a partner down a path and it's not, and then all of a sudden you find out that the solution maybe doesn't do exactly what it does in that vertical, or there's certain skills that we didn't know were required. And those are challenging because it's, you have an unhappy customer, you got an unhappy partner, you got an unhappy sales team. And so, finding the ideal partners that have those skills is what we spend a lot of time on. We profile it out and say, we got to go find partners that are this big in that market, in that vertical, and they have these skills. And, and the same thing on the cybersecurity side. We spent a lot of time with that. We had some really good acquisitions, and, oftentimes the first thing they want to do is go jump in and say, let's just go do more business with the biggest of the big, right? If we can just crack into, the 3-letter big companies that I'm talking about, then problem solved. And it actually stalls the business because, like I said, you're getting too distracted, too many unqualified leads. So it's better to get it right with certain partners, because then it's easier to scale it, versus if you make some mistakes with the bigger partners, it's really hard to go back in and say, oh, now we figured it out and now it's time. So, but that kind of goes back to the, how do you say no or not yet, which is a challenge. And in addition, then, it's our responsibility to take that feedback that we're getting back to the product teams and the solution teams and the marketing teams to say, hey, here's what we really think is required to make this solution successful in the channel. So, but again, it's an iterative process. It's always ongoing in managing the capability, the skills, the capacity, all that stuff. It's it's a little bit of art and a little bit of science, but it really is fascinating, and I've really enjoyed these kinds of early stage and acquisition things over my career.
And I think that's why people trust you in and around the channel, in and around acquisitions and mergers, because to your point, it has to build. You can't just, you can't go in and say, okay, let's go to the biggest, or let's have this massive, it might not make sense. So I know we only have a few minutes left, but again,
by the way, those are tough conversations because, a lot of people, just like I said, want the biggest or want more of everything. And that's often not the right strategy. And so how you weave it in, how you validate the value prop, all those things I mentioned, some of those are really hard conversations. But, just haven't seen the movie for a long time. That's my responsibility, is to go back to the powers that be and say, we got to go narrow this down or focus this. So. All right, we got a couple minutes. How do you want to wrap this up?
I know. I'm well, I want to know.
I'm enjoying this conversation. Yeah.
And thank you, because I'm constantly learning. This is as much for me as it is for others. But when you're going into one of those tough conversations, especially, like us, we've been friends for a long time because you work with these people for so long. you start knowing about their families and what's important to them, and the next role that they want, or all these things. How is there something that the Steve Benvenuto does when he's getting ready for these really tough conversations? Is there a way that you prepare yourself? Or is it more based on who you're talking to? How do you, because like you said, they're really tough conversations.
Yeah, well, I think a couple things, right? You mentioned that I think first of all, it starts with trust, right? And so, I think that, many of the partners that I've worked with, the executives of many of those partners I've known for a long time. And they go, trust and transparency really go hand in hand. And you mentioned transparency earlier, right? So, being transparent, I've got, I think, the ability to share a lot of stories. Some of them are pretty fascinating. I probably can't share them on here of, things that I've learned and mistakes that were made on why you should do things a certain way. And that's for another conversation. But I think, I really, just having done it a long time, I really try to, understand, and I value what the sales teams are saying, and saying, we just want to go do this and that. And I, again, kind of going back to it, just having done it and having like over subscribed, too many geos, too many countries, all of that is really hard to put all that back in the bottle. So I think I come with a level of experience that I think is valued by many, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, explaining, what are the stepping stones to that scale, right? And it really is about, can you validate customer solutions that are winning? So we spent a lot of time this last year capturing partner use cases and wins that really show like, hey, this solution works, in this segment, with this size customer, in this vertical, and capturing those for our sales teams to say, like, go find more like this. And the same thing, we take those with other partners, go find more like this. It's like a treasure map. Like, you lead them down the path to say, find these, ask these questions, and you can win. So, I prepare for those by, some experience, but also being able to say, so, here's the plan that we need to take going forward. Here's the stepping stones that we should take, starting with, value proposition and who's the ideal partners that we think can win the day for us early. And then we just go find more partners like that to take that solution to. So, and again, same thing on the partner side, always being prepared to, be fully transparent with them about where we are, what stage of the market we're in, the expectations for them, either letting us lead POCs right now and then ultimately having them lead POCs. All of that is the transparency that you need with the partner community as well. So it really happens on both sides, both the internal sales side and product side, and then on the partner side. But again, it's a blast, right? Like I said, it's like art and science coming together, and a lot of lessons learned along the way. And you and I, we've done a lot of these together too, so it's been fun to see the journey that both of us have taken here on some of these things.
Oh, I love it. I mean, that's, sometimes I can't believe it's my job. I'm like, I really get paid to do this.
Yeah, I know.
Fast, but like you said, there's tough conversations, but I think if you're consistently honest, if you're consistently transparent, people know where you're coming from. And I cannot agree with you more that that's the piece that if you really want to build a brand, if you really want people to come and want to be part of your channel, or to have a more fluid acquisition, we know there's many massive ones happening right now. Splunk and Cisco, Mandiant and Google. We've got the VMware, Broadcom. There's all kinds of acquisitions and massive mergers happening right now. Same with massive organizations trying to build out their channel or, grow their channel. All of this, I think, ultimately does come down to having a researched back plan, to your point, that's across the organization. You don't work in a silo, and that's been, clearly evident based on even the things that you said today. Working across the organization, having a fluid but researched back plan, and then communicating it. Saying, okay, and then iterating, keep building on it.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't I've worked with great teams, right? I mean, I've had some awesome folks that I've worked with in my team, a lot of stakeholders that have just been amazing. And, everybody has to be bought. I mean, you and me and Frankie Lento, we worked a lot together. So, guys like that, people that trust each other, that know that we're all speaking on behalf of each other, and that are executing the plan, and just some others along the way that have been amazing. You know, a lot of it is that stakeholder alignment. So it's tough conversations, but like if you're aligned on the plan and everybody's like going in the same direction, it makes it really easy. And we really executed that, like I said, back in some of the early emerging technology days, and then even in the cybersecurity group that we had, and we really stuck to the plan, and it made it a lot easier. As soon as somebody strays off and says, "Oh, actually, we said we weren't going to go do that, but I'm going to go do that," like that it really breaks it. And so,
Right.
you know, being, you know, stakeholder alignment, working with great teams, you know, all of that is just foundational to making all of this really work. So I've been very fortunate to have some great people. Where Edison Paris has certainly been a mentor of mine along the way as well. So you can a couple shots to some folks that have been really good to me. So
there you go. There you go. And
the final thing, I don't know, I know you're trying to wrap, but for everybody on it is Sabrina's birthday on Sunday. I don't know, this might not even be published by then, but
it'll be out. It'll be out. That's
okay.
So funny. Well,
So
thank you.
I hope you have a good birthday and you get to do something wonderful.
I really appreciate that. Means the world to me. Thank you. That's very, very sweet. And thank you for this. Thank you for, you know, I have come to you with big questions for years, and you've always taken the time and invested. And that means a lot. That says a lot about your personality and just who you are. I've been around the teams that you've built, and they adore you, and they really listen to you. But I think in large part because you really listen to them. And we need good leaders. So I appreciate you more than you probably know. Thank you, Steve.
Wow.
And thank you for being on here with us. And yeah, great things ahead. More to come.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the partnership and the friendship both. So enjoy your birthday. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. More to come.